So Joel, you have a new book. It's coming out and it's called, I'm just going to read the title and then I'm going to ask you a question about the title. It's The Babylon Bee Guide to Gender, the comprehensive handbook to men, women, and the millions of new genders we just made up. The obvious question with that title, do you want to be canceled? Is that your goal here?
Well, the Babylon Bee has managed to find quite a bit of success off of getting canceled again and again. So I'm not saying we're looking for it, but it wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing if we were to get deplatformed by Amazon or something like that.
It always seems to
That's
help
kind
those
of par for the
books,
course for
right?
us.
Yeah, it always
Yeah.
seems to be like the thing that propels a book even more when that happens. But
Yeah.
in all seriousness, this is a book obviously taking the typical comedy you guys are known for, and taking a serious issue and really driving it home in a different way. Why did you guys choose to tackle this particular topic?
Yeah, well, I guess first of all, it seemed like a very natural thing for us. This is kind of a joke that the Babylon Bee has been telling for years now. It is a hot button topic in the culture, probably the hot button topic in our culture right now. And what we're arguing about on the surface is really just the surface. I mean, this goes down 20 levels deep into where our culture has come from and the thinking that has shaped kind of the water that we swim in right now. And it really all ultimately goes back to uh, God, the creator, and Lucifer saying, I will be like the Most High. God, you're not going to define who I am. I'm going to define who I am. And so, we felt like it was an important topic to discuss, but a very easy topic for us to write about, just because it's something we joke about all the time, and it's very funny. I mean, this ideology, or religion, if you will, you could call it a religion, gender ideology, is you don't have to stretch the truth or exaggerate it that much for it to just be funny on its face. It's that ridiculous. And so what we found is when we were writing this book and translating it to kind of this satirical format, you can just you can give the straight ideology word for word, and it comes across as satire sometimes.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because you said a lot there about really that struggle between good and evil, right? This is
Yeah.
something that's been with us since the beginning of time, and yet you look at Ephesians 6, you look at what the Bible tells us, we're in this struggle. I think a lot of people, though, are a little shocked by this movement in that it has blown up and become such a major thing, right? Brands are
Yeah.
engaging in it. It's sort of everywhere. Why do you think it went from being this idea that existed in a very small percentage of people's hearts and minds to something that exploded into the mainstream in the way that it has?
Yeah. I think it on the surface, it seems like it happened so suddenly and that it was sprung upon us so quickly. That's the perception. That's what it feels like. But I think in reality, the groundwork for this has been laid very slowly in the institutions, in our schools, for a very long, long time. And I just anecdotally, I'm a child of the '90s. I grew up in the '90s. I was born in the '80s, and I just remember all the pop culture that I consumed. I mean, from Disney movies, every kids shows. The message of everything that I consumed as a child was like, follow your heart.
Yeah.
That was it. That's what every Disney movie in the '90s was about, following your heart and like kind of throwing off the shackles of your obligations or whatever your family says you should be or whatever other people say you should be, and like the ultimate, honest existence is to live out your authentic self. That's kind of where, and so I think that people didn't realize that it was going to go here, but that it's kind of, this is where it had to conclude logically. It just it's been going on for longer than people realize.
Yeah, you make a really good point there. The follow your heart lie that has always been out there. It's sort of the fairy tale lie. I'm the same as you. I was born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s. And I think you're absolutely right. It was in every bit of entertainment, everything we experienced. That was the message. You had this other weird thing happen in culture, though, too, where suddenly it became all about having to, like, everybody gets a trophy. And if you don't give me a trophy, I'm going to flip out. I'm going to become a Karen. I'm going to be angry with you. You have to
Yeah.
justify and validate all of my feelings. That didn't exist as much before. How do you think that sort of dynamic mixing together with the follow your heart has sort of brought us into this sort of crisis moment in, culturally that we're in right now?
Yeah, well, you're right. We've it's kind of created this narcissism in our culture. It's really the ideology of self worship. You hear the phrase "your truth, my truth" a lot. Um, relativism. We are over time. I think our culture has migrated away from this idea of truth being a thing that exists outside of ourselves, that exists independently of us, and regardless of whether or not we acknowledge it, to something that's inside of ourselves, that we create for ourselves, kind of this existentialism. um, yeah, and it really is, it's kind of just been the perfect storm. I mean, all these ideas, whether it's narcissism, pride, self-definition, your truth, my truth, relativism, um, you know it gender ideology really was just kind of laying in wait for culture to be ready to accept it. And it really, as soon as that domino fell, it happened really, really fast.
It did. And, obviously you have this book here, The Babylon Bee Guide to Gender, and it's funny and it's going to make people laugh. And that's your intent. That's what you guys always do. But also, I would imagine there's a message you want to convey at the end of this. So when somebody picks it up, they read it, they're enjoying it, they're laughing. What do you also want them to be experiencing and thinking?
Yeah, well, we tried. We sorry, I'm stuttering a little bit here. We try hard not to lean too heavy into the message or the takeaways with this. I think there's a lot of people who are doing a great job with that already when it comes to fighting gender ideology, opposing it, rationally or through debate. Um, our goal in this book was to it, just to laugh at it. I think um, this whole movement is the source of a lot of anxiety and frustration for people. We worry about our kids. We wring our hands about the state of the world and where it's going. What kind of world are our kids going to grow up in? I think a lot of people are worried and frustrated, and we wanted to bring a levity to the whole thing, that um, this ideology can be laughed at, and it deserves to be laughed at. And I think laughter is not just healing for your anxieties and your worries, but it also, I think, gives people courage that this thing that they're opposing isn't necessarily some big scary giant. It's a very silly thing that you can ridicule. Um, and so we hope that the people who buy this book, that it serves to bring a little bit of levity and give them courage to fight this in a way that is fun. We can be happy warriors because we stand on the truth, and we have an eternal hope, and we know who wins in the end. And so there's always going to be lies that our culture tells us. There's going to be new movements coming and going that tell us different lies, and this is the lie of our age. This is the battle that God has given to us, and so let's have fun. Let's have fun fighting it. Let's laugh a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the process of doing what you guys do at the Bee, you have hit some censorship. You have hit these moments of people coming after you, weird fact checks about things that obviously are comedy. And so with all of that, what is it like to navigate that? Because you guys, you're constantly churning out funny content. How do you get around that? Do you just not care about that? Are you not concerned with that? I'm sort of curious about maybe what impact that has on your process.
Yeah. Well, it can be frustrating, because we want to tell funny jokes. And when you have to kind of break character and, sue social media companies, or, um, you know, get the word out to your subscribers that you've been censored from this platform or that platform, it does kind of, it can take some of the fun out of it, but it is so in a sense, we're fighting this battle on two fronts, where we're telling our jokes and we're having fun, but there's a serious side to it that we have to fight. Um, that said, we have gotten a lot of great comedic material out of some of these cancellation attempts. The first kind of volley of this was when Facebook partnered with Snopes, and Snopes came after us and started fact checking our articles. And the fact checks were so ridiculous that we just had so much fun making fun of Snopes. We got a lot of material out of it. So in a sense, it gives us material sometimes, which is nice. Um, but you have to work hard not to lose your sense of humor when you're fighting the battle against the deplatforming. When you see Facebook engagement tank because they've done something in the algorithm that doesn't allow people to see and share your articles, that can be frustrating. But you have to keep good spirits and keep doing what you're doing. I always say that if we get kicked off of all of these social media platforms, we'll go back to print and we'll hire paper boys and we'll do it that way. We'll never stop doing what we're doing.
Well, I love that and I appreciate that. And the book is The Babylon Bee Guide to Gender. Grab it wherever books are sold. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.